And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, Interim General Manager at WEIU. My co-host is back, Alicia Haynes.
Yeah, I come and go now.
We've had a couple of sports-related programs, and she sometimes doesn't like those as much, so we'll welcome
I just
back.
don't understand them, so usually I'm like, eh.
So cool show today. WEIU alumni working here at EIU. So we have Joe Astrouski.
Hi.
Lacey Spence.
Hello.
And Mr. Jonathan Mattson.
How's it going?
All three of those folks have worked at WEIU in the past and now all work at Eastern Illinois University. Lacey actually works for WEIU Television. So, and then Jonathan and Joe are housed in the WEIU wing of communications and journalism here. So it's kind of, I thought it would be a neat thing to, first of all, get us all together and just talk and have a different type show about, about WEIU, but mostly about the alumni of WEIU and kind of a little life story. And the other thing is I completely forgot about March 2nd's date. And so these three saved us, Alicia, basically.
Oh.
So I guess we'll let ladies go first, and we'll just each of you tell your current story about your current position at Eastern Illinois University and what you do here. So Lacey, go first.
Alrighty, so I'm a director producer here now, and I just started in January, so I'm still figuring out what I'm doing here. So far, I've gathered that my role is super important because I get to help promote the station, promote what we do, promote our programming, and we're getting ready to launch the Our Story series, and I think we're heading to Sullivan. So very excited to get to interact with the community, tell their stories while still pumping up our awesome station.
There you go. Joe?
I am teaching broadcast journalism here at the school, so news and media literacy for incoming freshmen. I teach that, and then teach folks including Alicia.
So if I say you're the best professor, do I get extra credit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
He's the best professor.
If you bring some chips, double extra credit. Would be very
We're
nice.
always about the snacks at Eastern. That's what it is.
And so that's what I do, and then I help out with our Newswatch students as well.
Mr. Mattson.
Yeah, so here at Eastern, I'm part of the television and video production program. So I teach a lot of the classes specific to production. So, for example, audio and voice 1 and 2, and then in the production sequence 1, 2, and 3. And whatever else the university needs me to teach. So occasionally promotional communication, that kind of stuff.
He says with perfect diction.
Yeah, I was going to say, and one of the greatest voices ever to come out of WEIU radio, Jonathan Mattson there. He's got that news, that professional voice. So it's good to hear from you. I guess I'll again start with Lacey. What made you want to come back to your alma mater to be a part of what we do here at EIU, WEIU?
Well, I tell you what, a lot of it was kind of based on my commute. I had been commuting to Terre Haute for a little over 3 years, commuting to Decatur for about a year, and I'd still lived in Charleston. And throughout all of that, loved Charleston, didn't really want to leave. Really loved the university when I was here through WEIU, and getting to come back and work with a lot of my mentors has been really cool.
Joe or Jonathan?
This opportunity came up, and I had a number of people. I was really, frankly, enjoying the work I was doing as a reporter. But I had a few people wrote to me and said, you really should consider doing this, and it's been great so far, doing some teaching here, and then having some spare time to work on some projects for WEIU on the side and others.
There you maybe you both came from WAND TV, so we thank WAND TV for.
And my first job was at WTHI TV in Terre Haute, where Lacey worked as well. And one of the really cool things we should say about Lacey coming into this position, where she's going to be telling a lot of community stories, is, and already is, frankly, is that you have been covering these communities for 10 years.
Ages is fine.
Yes, yeah. As a student, and then at WTHI, those Edgar and Clark and Cumberland counties, you're over there, and then at WAND, you were covering Moultrie and Shelby and Coles and Douglas, and you are no stranger to these communities, and you know them well, and you're a part of them, which is a huge asset, frankly.
Thank you. It's one of those I didn't want to leave, so I didn't.
It makes sense.
I think that's something I can relate to as well. So, Eastern has always been something that's kind of always been there for me, right? So I did undergrad here from 2004 to 2008, and I went and worked for WRUL, WROY in Carmi, and then WJVD out of Salem, and at that point I decided, hey, I want to go back and get my master's degree. And Eastern was, a very easy fit for that. So I was from 2011 to 2013. Then I moved down to Arkansas for a bit, working at a university down there, doing some adjunct teaching and running a film and equipment lab, and starting a YouTube channel in my spare time. And then, this position opened up, and they said, hey, you want to come back? And I said, yes, I would love to. And I love Charleston, love the community, and it's fantastic that I'm right across from HipMix, which was
where you started, eh?
huge important part of my undergrad experience.
Cool, that's neat. College students today, I know you're a little bit closer, but you've been, college students today, as opposed to maybe when you were here. When you were here, what kind of differences do you notice? Anybody can answer, or all of you.
Oh, goodness.
Careful, Jeff.
Yikes.
just gonna leave
I
now.
will say one of the, and I feel like an old person saying this, but I think that the technological change over the past 10 years has been remarkable. Because I have folks in class who don't, and we were talking about this before we went on there. You have students in class who feel like it's a perfectly natural thing to listen to you while they have earbuds in and are watching a video. And that was, I had a brick for a phone when I was here. I had this little Nokia thing that you could play hockey with, and so this is kind of a new thing, and I think it's changed a lot of how we do the job of teaching. It's changed a lot of how students, do their business. In good and bad ways.
Mm-hmm. That's a very polite way of saying they're on their phone all the time.
And Lacey is not one of them. And actually, frankly, it's one of those things too that by the time you have a student who's in an advanced class in their major, a lot of that they've sort of learned. You got to put it away. You got to make eye contact. But really, when somebody's a freshman or a sophomore, it's sort of a tough thing to change and to convince folks to look up and engage you in a conversation.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I haven't so much had that experience in my classes. I think for us, phones are kind of a like a novelty, and for this current generation student, they've always kind of been there. So I find anyway that it's not as hard to get them out of that zone, but it depends on the students, definitely. I'll say that I really appreciate with this generation of student that they are really media literate. They understand things a lot more than I think we did growing up with it and trying to navigate and learn some of this stuff. And they're a bit more suspicious about what they read online, and certainly in the realm of journalism, I'm sure that's something that you can appreciate. And for me, trying to teach production, it's not uncommon to see some of the more involved students go out and supplement what we're teaching them. They hop on YouTube. They're like, oh, we talked about this in class. How do I do that? How do I take this a step further? And that other kind of technology also gives them another route to apply some of the skills that they learn. So for many of them, back in our day, YouTube is, kind of there, but not very many people used it. Now, it's an integral part of their life. It's like, okay, I made this media. What can I do with it? Where can it go to live?
And I think one thing that's really interesting about that is I think that being social media natives, right, especially with YouTube, that what attracts a lot of these students to, especially journalism, and I imagine to other types of broadcasting too, is the appeal of being on camera is kind of, that's old news to them, because if they've wanted to be seen, they can do it, and they've been on YouTube since they were 5, right? I've got a little nephew who is posting little dog videos on YouTube, and he's like 7. So that stuff is less appealing, and I think on the one hand that changes the number of folks who are interested in going into broadcasting. On the other hand, the folks who are, I think, are doing it because they want to say something, or they want to do something, or there is an appeal to them beyond just being in front of a camera, which is can be a really nice thing.
Well, and
Alicia, from a student's point of view, when you hear teachers and talk about these kind of things, what goes on in your mind? Because you're growing up in that era.
When am I going to leave here? Is the first thing. I know you, Jonathan is a YouTube guru. We talked about all the stuff that you tell your students and how to get noticed. Especially now, one of the things that you have to do, it's just it's not even, oh, maybe it's an option. No, now it's a requirement. You have to have a media presence, you know, regardless of if you're going in journalism or communication studies or whatever the case is, because that's what people are attracted to. So I think, I think it's a huge thing, and I also think it's really cool that you're able to adapt. You know, I mean, this is stuff that I grew up with, right? You know, being in front of a camera or whatever the case is, but and we're not that much apart in terms of age. I'm sure I'm not going to call you guys old, but as professor, that's because you are. I mean, you.
Just you, Jeff.
We've talked. You have a kid in college. So, anyways, but you guys, it's just interesting to see how professors are able to adapt and are able to cater to, or I shouldn't say cater because that makes it sound like it's a negative thing, but are able to help students get that presence or help them tune it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's a huge changing media landscape, right? So it's like in order to teach you guys the best way that we can, we have to adapt to those new mediums and forms that are out there. And like you said, you know, social media representation is important an important part of it. You guys are very much, you know, your own brand nowadays, and you know, you have to have all of your ducks in a row if you want to be successful and get noticed. And the other appeal of learning some of this stuff, you know, Joe certainly understands gatekeeping and that kind of stuff, but you have something like YouTube where it's like, I can do what I want. You know, I can put stuff out there. I don't have to clear it with anybody, and you know, there are certainly trade-offs to that, especially in news circles. But it's something that, you know, we have to have our finger on the pulse for that if we want you guys to be not only successful but ethical. You know, that's important as well.
Well, I remember when cell phones and when every student had one all the time, we used to not want them to have them in the studio here, because we thought it'd be a distraction to what they're doing. But now it's really an addition to what they're doing, because they can, in one button, promote themselves. They can go to, and they can, with one button, they're on YouTube, they're on, you know, Facebook, Twitter, everything at once. So they're not just promoting themselves, they're promoting our brand as well. So we've seen that change over the last few years, where we accept
that's
it
cute.
more.
You think we're promoting?
Well, some of them do. Some of the kids really do a really good job of it, and some don't. But like during a basketball game, if I'm at home, well, I'll have Twitter on to follow the Eastern basketball game while I'm watching something else, because I'm just getting the score.
Exactly.
So, you know, the students are using that media to the advantage of themselves by learning a new craft, but also assisting with the product.
Exactly. And Callie Lutman, which I'm sure you know who she is, she had you in class, I believe.
Yes.
Anyways, she's the one that taught me how to like promote yourself on Facebook with Facebook Live even, or Snapchat. And so anyways, I may not have had you in class, but I sure learned some of the things that you taught her, because she
makes me happy that someone's paying attention.
right.
There's always that one, John. Talk about how, when each of you are here now, you're getting your feet wet. Lacey's relatively new, but Jonathan and Joe have been here a little while. How do you plan and as you go forward to continue to make Eastern Illinois University better?
For me, anyway, with the classes that I teach that are, again, you know, production classes, it's paying attention to what's going on in the field. You know, how are people doing things? You know, how are people creating video or audio? What is the new standard? What is out there that's challenging what currently exists? You know, I always like things to be really relevant. Instead of, you know, oh, this is the way that we've taught it forever. I'll be, yeah, we've taught it forever that way, but you know, media isn't static. You know, it evolves constantly, and being on top of that, I think, is the most important thing for me.
Lacey?
See, I feel like I'm kind of echoing that, because you talk about like, oh, I can just YouTube this or look at this. My goal in this new role is to bring a fresh look to things, because I know Fred Peralta that I replaced, he was here for a good amount of years, and he did excellent work. And but I just know that I'm a fresh set of eyes, I'm a fresh perspective, and I really want to bring that into promoting our station and what we do.
I agree with what Jonathan said, which is that you know, these industries have changed so fast, and the job that somebody does as a local news reporter is radically different now. Whereas, you know, just 10 years ago when I left Eastern, you would be responsible for going out with a photographer if you were in TV news and gathering a story and producing maybe 2 versions of it for 2 separate newscasts. Now that same reporter is going to be producing a web story and updating it throughout the day and producing 2 to 3 to 4 stories by him or herself, and updating social media through the day. So those jobs have really changed dramatically. So I think on the one hand, you're trying to keep up with the changes of what these jobs are that we're sending folks off into. But on the other hand, the more that the job changes and expands, the more those folks, at least in the world of journalism, also have to be really rooted in stuff that hasn't changed, right? So if you're a TV reporter and you're writing a web story, you're going to be writing that in Associated Press news styles that are 100 years old. And when you're conducting interviews, you're going to be using interview techniques of active listening and making eye contact and being empathetic that really aren't new. I mean, these are things that have been around forever. And so I think it's a matter of kind of keeping one foot in the changing world of the technology and the medium, but then also being rooted in, with the other foot, that stuff that doesn't change, about doing the job ethically and in a way that you can be proud of.
That's good. That's good. Questions, Alicia, for what you got?
Well, I just think it's beneficial. Well, all right, let me back up. As a student, seeing alums, teach or come back, it's almost inspirational, because if they're successful, because you guys had successful careers before you came back to Eastern, right? That means I can be successful. So,
Here's the goal.
Hinton at Eastern, like, I would make a great employee, guys. Just saying. You hired them. I'm sorry. No,
Well, And can I ask you something again, Lacey? Because
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this. We have students like you who jump in with both feet, who are working in our school, working at the paper and working here on HitMix and being active in the community and doing things like. But then we have other folks, frankly, that don't. And what was there something that led you to do that?
Yeah, I didn't want to go back home. No, that I don't have a safety net.
Yeah.
So.
That's the plan from day one.
Big motivating factor there. Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, and you've said that since you've been on the show, is that your whole goal was you didn't want to go back home. You wanted to make something of yourself here at Eastern, and you're finally close to graduation, we think, right?
Well,
Maybe.
I don't know. I got to pass Joe's class, and
class is this, Joe?
music, broadcast news.
Okay. It's the comm law that keeps everybody here, is what I've noticed.
No, I got an A in comm law. That was my favorite
really
class.
enjoyed. I liked comm
Yeah.
law a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember there were 2 folks that got an A in my comm law class. Me and John Twork, who was a sports director here for a period of time.
I may not always show up to class, but I showed up to that class. It's probably because Lola was my advisor.
There you go.
But no, I just think it is inspirational to see. I think Eastern should hire more alums, honestly, because when I see, people who are in my shoes, it's also easy to relate.
Yeah.
You guys know what it was like. I mean, it's one thing to hear people say, look, I was there, I know exactly what you're going through, but you guys actually did go through everything. You went through Kelly, and Newswatch, and you were at HitMix, and you were in issues. I had no idea that you were one of the co-hosts. Issues and Attitudes.
So was you.
That's cool.
There's a lot of stuff to be said with that as well. That a lot of us, once we graduated, we didn't really stray that far away. Certainly most of us, I think, stay in the Midwest, but keeping in mind that those connections exist.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, you want to intern at a station somewhere in Southern Illinois? Well, let me talk to some people. Right? We know people that are there. We have options for students that can, help them do the things that they want to do, or, get the foot in the door, things like that. And those are things that we value as well. And aside from that, we're most of us are Midwest people, and there's just
Right.
that connection that we have.
It's the networking. I mean, that helps. And going back to what you said about kids who don't really, I see it as people who don't care. about, they're only here for a couple things, and maybe that's unfair to say, because I don't know everyone's situation.
Well, some students just come to get the degree and they don't want to be involved. Which,
right.
We get it. But it's just unfortunate. But
as professors, it's nice when you recognize that potential, because then you want to help people. I want to help people, and I don't. What contacts do I have? But it's just little things like that. I don't know. I just think it's nice.
Well, I really liked when I went to go looking for a job. I was about to get married the October after I graduated, and I knew that I was staying in this area and that I had like 3 stations to choose from within driving distance. And it was such a relief to know that News Director Kelly Runyon, or Goodwin now, she had connections there. She helped me get that foot in the door. And then when I was looking to upgrade markets, she had connections at both of the other stations. And it's just nice to know that in this area, we have such a good reputation that we're able to not just have the connections and have the contacts, but also be able to back it up with the skills we've learned here.
That's right, because all the promotion in the world is really not going to get you very far if you don't know what you're doing.
You don't follow through. Yeah.
Well, it's just like where you went to work for a buddy of ours in the Southern Illinois Radio. He's now on our board for the advisory board here for Radio and TV Center.
Oh, at Salem?
Yes. So it's the neat stuff that we do. I guess I want to ask all 3 of you, too, has anything surprised you so far by coming back? I know you're gone for a while, then you come back. Is there anything that's like, wow, I didn't know that, or I would have never thought that?
Oh, gee, that's a good question.
Well, that's why I'm here. I did learn something.
50 years ago.
I'll kind of start with that, I guess. So, I mentioned earlier that, Eastern has kind of always been there. It's always been a home, which is very interesting for me to think about. That, I've lived in Charleston, I think, longer than I've lived pretty much anywhere else in my life. It's a fun little realization when you have that, but just understanding the idea of like Eastern really is a family was huge for me. So, I have been working down in Arkansas for 5 years, and I got a call one day, and it was, hey, we have this position that's opening. We want you in this position. Do you? Are you interested? And for me, I've always tried to be somebody who's, done the job the best they can, tried to learn as much as possible, work as hard as I can. I take that very, very seriously. And it was one of those moments I'd be like, is this it? Like, is this that moment when somebody really values me for, what I've been able to do, and they understand, my commitment to things, and it really was that moment, that kind of epiphany where I was like, Eastern really is a family, and it's one of those things that people talk about, a lot, but it wasn't really until that moment that I really got it, and that was a surprise for me.
Ooh, that's a tough answer to follow, to Joe and Lacey.
I don't know that I could provide an answer that's that good, but I will say one thing that's being in this job has shown me is that when you do encounter students who show that extra bit of interest or dedication, or have a good reason behind wanting to take a general education class that you're offering, and you see that opportunity there, and they're open to trying things and making the most of their time here, that really stands out in a way I don't think I would have understood 10 years ago. And it makes you want to do everything you can to get them where they want to go. And it makes me grateful for the folks here years ago who were that to me.
Lacey, anything surprised you so far?
Just to take kind of that a step further, just seeing that we're trying to work on, more integrated internships where we can offer, stuff in production, stuff in master control. And I think that's really cool just because as a student, I was very much like, I'm going to do Newswatch, and that was it. And then I kept my head down, I got my studies done, and that was everything. So I never made it down here to HitMix. I never really knew what the producers did. I didn't know what Mac in Program and Traffic did. And so I think it's a really cool opportunity that we're getting to expand that and really make students, I guess, better rounded, just because I missed out on it and I wish I would have got in on it.
There you go. All 3 of you good answers. Eastern did a good job hiring these 3, didn't they? There you go. Let's do some rapid fire questions. Favorite teacher at Eastern Illinois?
Gosh, that is a tough one. I'll say Mike Brad.
I'm tying because I'm lame. Cameron Craig and Kelly Goodwin.
I'm going to tie two between Paul Johnston in music and Dan Hagen in journalism.
You can answer. I mean, you're still here.
I'm
you can
still
round
new.
up too.
I don't know. I'm still here. I better.
Yeah, no pressure.
I better be careful. No, I have a lot. There's a lot of people.
What your favorite class at the AU? Was there a class that you just loved?
Gosh, that is tough to answer. I also had a German major in undergrad, and I really enjoyed the foreign languages.
Severe weather and thermodynamics. That's where I met my husband.
Oh, that's,
Freshman botany with Nancy Coutant, and then senior seminar on the Holocaust.
you want to answer favorite class?
Yeah, I loved communication law, and 2 political science classes about theory, classical and modern and contemporary theory, political theory. So.
Favorite place to eat in Coles County is?
Oh man, that's a tough one to answer because it depends on when I was here. If we're talking right now,
Right now.
right now,
It's got to be open now.
Coles County. I made the, I want to say mistake, but of discovering the actual Burger King in Mattoon. I say mistake because their fries are fantastic.
Don Sol hit me with that cheesy rice.
Lincoln Garden and Chubby's Pizza after 2.
Oh my God! Yes, yes. It always seems to taste better when you're wasted too. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, Alicia.
So she's heard.
We're going to have a talk after this. All right, let's go back to high school. Do you have that one high school teacher that kind of motivates you?
Well, Jeff, I hate to remind you, but I was homeschooled in high school,
Oh.
so I taught myself.
I
So
forgot
I
that.
guess myself.
There you go.
Oh goodness. Math teacher Mrs. Hawkins. She was great.
Debate teacher Frank Krimmel.
A high school teacher that was the one?
There's a couple, but Nikki Height was the one that told me to come to Eastern. So.
There you go. Is there a piece of memorabilia that you have that you from a job or growing up that one thing you cherish, that sits on your desk or sits at home on your desk?
Is this about the hat? that I
No,
was supposed to
mine's
send
a
you?
rock I got from one of my sales reps that's still in my desk in the studio from a long time ago. Is there just that one thing that you just love, that you cherish?
Just in general?
Yeah.
I have a plaque that has to do with Battlefield and some of the historical research I did for the game.
I'm a coffee cup hoarder, so I'm still working to get mine for here.
I have a wooden duck carved by a blind gentleman from Wausau, Wisconsin.
I knew there'd be a great
Why is
answer
that
to
the
that.
best?
This is a
Sorry.
very
That-
detailed answer.
It's very random.
A piece of memorabilia you cherish?
I have this record player. It's like a record player, CD player, tape deck that my grandma and mom bought for me. It was like $100, but they got it for me anyways because I started collecting records when I was like 12, and I never had a record player. So finally, when I was 16, they're like, "Here you go," and it cost them a lot of money.
There you
so.
go. Real quickly, summer vacation plans. Where are you going, Jonathan?
Anywhere where there's not coronavirus.
Not quite summer, but I'm heading to South Dakota in April.
Boston, New York in June.
There you go. Anywhere this year?
I don't know. I'm just hoping to get a job.
Out of here.
She's going to work.
All right. Joe
Yeah, I need
Astrouski, Lacey
something.
Spence, and Jonathan Mattson, thanks so much for coming in today and saving our show on this Monday. We appreciate it, and we're so glad you're all at Eastern Illinois University.
Of course.
Thanks.